Thank you very much for being with us at the 8th episode of the podcast series Get in the Zone. Today, we have alongside us Reko Luojumäki and Nastasja Minja, sports psychologists, well-known friends of mine. You have heard about them before in a previous podcast episode we made. As you may know, Nastasja Minja is a sports psychologist and school teacher involved with helping young athletes and kids reach well-being and optimal performance. And Reko Luojumäki is a sports psychologist working for the University of Jyväskylä in Finland and also working on private practice. Nastasja and Reko, thank you very much for honoring us with your presence here in this special podcast episode.
Thank you, Vasilis, and thank you everyone for listening.
Thank you. The goal of
Thank
this
you, guys.
podcast, thank you, Reko. The goal of this podcast is to talk about the rise of social media platforms and their positive and negative as well influence on athletes' lives and careers through a scientific view using also practical examples or thoughts. So, starting, I'm thinking about talking about the rise of social media platforms, which is something we all see in the past few years, at least in the past decade, and their influence on athletes' lives and careers. How has the advent of social media transformed the way athletes interact with their fans and the public? Nastasja, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I can start, of course. So I think this might be one of the positive, but on the other hand, as well as negative views so the effects of social media on connection with fans. At the same time as it helps like fans interact with athletes and vice versa, it can also have a negative impact, of course, through like online harassment and bullying. So I've been actually reading into some like recent news on this topic, and it is often reported that athletes basically that this sort of interaction often negatively affects athletic performance because of the negative comments and communication from the side of the fans. So I think this can be an advantage as well as a disadvantage, and I guess it depends on the turn of events. Of course, if the athlete performs well, then fans are happy, but then at the same time, there are always those maybe haters who cheer for the opposite teams, and they make funny videos, memes from maybe young athletes who are sensitive to this kind of exposure.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Reko and Vasilis?
Reko, shall you say something?
Of course, it creates more pressure, from my opinion, but I'm not seeing it as an all bad thing because money-wise, it's good. You get more advertising, especially for the smaller sports.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, it also creates that pressure, what I mentioned earlier, and it makes performance maybe a bit more difficult. But it's also about personalities, because some people like the pressure, some people don't. So I think we cannot really nowadays anymore cut out all the social media. So we just need to learn ways to make it beneficial. And that's a process.
I completely agree with what Reko just said, and I would like to add to that this is really an important aspect. So educating, especially young athletes, how to use social media, and as they're older, as they become successful, of course, there's also a PR and media team behind them that maybe takes care of these social media accounts. But we also need to remember that athletes are also, people with private lives, and they use social media privately as well. And at schools, we do have some education on that, like to prevent maybe some of the negative effects that can happen on social media and how to healthily use these platforms. However, I think that especially for athletes who are bound to sooner or later use social media also for their profession, like as a brand, I think this educational maybe seminars, like if we're talking in this practical sense, are something that could come in handy and actually give some positive influence on the development of this.
Yes, Nastasja, with your latest answer, you also answered the question I was about to ask later on about the ways that everybody and we as sports psychologists can help, and this is really useful, making sessions informing athletes about effective ways of social media management. And I would like to add to all the things you both said that I think it is a new challenge for athletes. 30 years ago, an athlete wouldn't have that amount of social exposure, no exposure on social media, of course, 30 years ago. But I think that athletes, as all people, from what research has shown, athletes who are extrovert and manage better their the social aspects of their lives are also managing better their social media accounts and exposure. And athletes who are more introvert or don't manage to handle their social exposure and socialization skills well also struggle a little bit or more and are more affected by social media disadvantages as high pressure or racist or negative in general comments by other people even unknown to them. So for sure, I think this is a new challenge that the athletes have to face, but it can also become a huge opportunity for them to gain more respect, more recognizability, and even more income through social media platforms. So, Nastasja, you mentioned regular training through seminars or something like this about social media management for experts. I think that many sport clubs or sport federations have for now, for the time being, and maybe in the future even more personnel, people specialized in social media management to try to who try to educate athletes and even coaches and people, not only the athletes but also people around athletes in sport teams or even if they're individual sports or collective sports. What other ways do you think we can introduce to athletes, we as sports psychologists or sports psychology specialists, on managing their social media presence? Reko, would you like to start answering this question?
Yeah, I'm just thinking about what you just said and what Nastasja said, and I think like we cannot really create a training for how to act with the social media. For me, it's more like a relationship, you know? Like all the athletes, they're individuals and they have sort of a relationship with the social media. So we should probably try to help them to create that relationship healthy, you know? Not like we give all the athletes the same training, how to behave, how to interact with social media, but rather how they could make that relationship with social media healthy. If that makes any sense for you.
Yes, from what I understand, you mean that we have to speak on an individual level with every athlete, because every athlete may use or may be affected differently from social media use, so that he can understand personally what is better for him from the social media use, and how to handle maybe overuse negative effects. But this
Yeah,
is different from athlete to athlete.
yeah, exactly. Like every of your social relationship is a bit different.
Yes,
But if you're good with the social relationships, you're probably good with
are
all
good
your
in general.
friends,
Yes.
with good meeting all the new people, interacting with new people.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's something that we could really target on.
Yes, but I think also maybe some kind of general information about social media management can be useful to all athletes, and then try, of course, to make a more personal contact and adjustment with each athlete on counseling level. We as sports psychologists. Nastasja, what do you think about all that?
Yeah, I agree that there should be like some individualized approach, definitely. Also, I think what Reko wanted to accentuate, if I understood correctly, is that we cannot avoid like social media nowadays. Like athletes will use it, we're all using it. It's like part of the world, and that we should basically find the ways to get the most benefits out of it, because of course it can be a great thing. Athletes can connect also to other athletes, to other professionals. So wonderful people they can meet there, they can develop their brand, they can develop some sort of identity there that can help them also with performance, of course. I do agree with the individualized approach as well. I would stick to the idea of having some general training, as far as for traps, that can happen, like what information to disclose, how to write posts in a professional way if you're a professional athlete creating your brand, things like that. I like that you mentioned like coaches also, and like other staff within the sports club. It just gave me the idea that maybe it's worth mentioning the fact that there are so many different social media platforms, and there are certain platforms that even our generation doesn't use. For example, I don't know if you guys have TikTok, but like for me, that's
Yes.
something that I didn't get into. Like, so basically, I think that maybe we could also educate, like, literally staff and coaches in sports clubs about these platforms, these social media platforms that young athletes actually use, because it's about being familiar, and then they can also talk about these platforms with them, and they can maybe engage more, and then
Yes, and their relationship will be closer, and maybe the athlete will feel more attached to a coach or other staff who knows about TikTok or other
yeah,
platforms that he uses.
exactly. And they can also, help them. Like if there's a discussion about this, and if they see that maybe an athlete is posting like something that maybe it's like he or she shouldn't, then, or if they see some potential benefit or danger, they can actually discuss that with him. Because if they don't know what TikTok is, they maybe can't even get the information from such conversations. I don't know about. So you hear your players talking about some TikTok video, and you don't know what it is at all, so you cannot actually engage in a conversation, or get some info out of it. So I think it's important, yeah, to stay up to date to what people are actually using nowadays, like young athletes. So yeah, but I think informational educational seminars should be everywhere, and also not just on the topic of like practical use and safe use of social media, but also on raising the awareness of the effects it has on one's brain, because we know that Like screens are highly addictive. And I think if we educate young athletes on the effects that social media use has on the brain, like the dopamine effects from all the likes, comments, like the depression and anxiety that can be caused if there's some negative contact, negative reaction. So that also if this happens to them, that they know what's going on, that they know who to talk to. I've read this piece that I think it's for the location of Canada and USA. I need to check out statistics for Europe as well. But young athletes use like social media or let's say screens 32 hours per week. And
At least.
they use social media platforms 7 hours more in average than all the rest of digital, I don't know, like gaming series, movies, whatever. So, and I think that's a lot. So that's definitely a good basis for getting addicted to these things. And I think that this is one of the dangers, that can affect mental health. And I see it in my practice. I see it working in school. I see it like communicating with athletes about these things. I had a workshop where, students were coming and like one after the other, they sat in this long line. And one after the other, right after they sat down, they took out their phone. So I think this is a habit, okay? You're not even aware you're doing this. And I think that most of youth today is addicted to screens. And I think we should start to ask before how we can like implement some practical solutions to overcoming disadvantages of social media. I think one of the main things is that we start with ourselves as adults. Because if a young athlete comes home and his parents are on the phone, or if they use like social media to, lower their stress levels, chill, and they're on their phone all the time, and that's like when they communicate to each other, they scroll in the meantime. I mean, then it's really difficult to talk about, we have to set an example. That's what I wanted to say. So also educating parents. And being an example ourselves also. I mean, I know I spend too much time on Instagram. So, to start and work.
I think the good example we have to say to the parents themselves.
Yeah.
Yes. So you added a new aspect, parents, who are also very important in the general mental part of the athlete's performance, but especially in young athletes, children or adolescents. And this is very important because the parents spend, if not most of the time, many hours of the day with their kids, and they have to try to help their kids and children with social media use. We may try to say to them or even impose to them, as much as we can, to handle and try to minimize as much as possible the use of social media to 1 or 2 hours per day. I think it is practical. But you never can, as a sports psychologist, as a coach, even as a parent, impose that totally. But the goodwill will always have an effect on athletes. Maybe try to, if not minimize it 1 or 2 hours per day, try to handle it to less time possible. So we have mentioned general training for athletes, coaches, especially on the new social media platforms, other staff, director board maybe of sport team or federation, individualized approach with each athlete, trying to discuss his needs and how he can address them on social media. You, Nastasja, mentioned also dopamine addiction, which is something we will delve a little bit more now. And we also mentioned that parental counseling and even training on social media management is also useful, especially for young athletes. So as for dopamine addiction, as you have seen on DSM recently, it has been added as a disorder, the addiction to screen, any kind of screen. So of course, there are a lot of scientific documents and results that show that dopamine is hugely affected by social media use and other not only dopamine and some other even serotonin or something else that is related to well-being and mental well-being of each human being. And from what I've read, newest generations may not even try to use drugs or excessively alcohol because they get what they want on dopamine and serotonin levels through social media use or through screen use. Reko, what do you think about that? Is it something that we have to focus a little bit more, especially in the years coming up?
Well, I might have to say I think about this a bit differently. Because I think we cannot really change that people's behavior and where they get their dopamine from. I like to think in a way that we could use that as our advantage. You know, if you get your dopamine from the screen time, why cannot we create the screen time to be beneficial in a way? Like throughout the COVID, we did this little study, referring to the previous conversations what we have had, is that we tried it out and we tried to improve group cohesion in a junior hockey team by using TikTok videos that they would just like send each other challenges, and they really like it, and the group cohesion really improved. So people really want to use their screen time in a beneficial manner, their own life. So I wasn't supposed to advertise here, but that's why we created this like an application that throughout their dopamine levels by using this screen, using this phone. Everyone is doing that nowadays. So why they couldn't do something beneficial with their phones, with the screen time?
Yes, of course, there's no need to prohibit or ban screen use because, especially in adolescents, this is never a good approach, the prohibition. And of course, there are advantages, positive effects in dopamine also from social media use. So yes, we're not talking about banning, but we're talking about something like considerable logical use of social media, right?
Yeah, finding a balance, right? To actually not let social media like displace or displace the real connections, the real communication, so that youth athletes are still confident in communicating in person and in a social setting, right? Because I do see that effect, it's like a defense mechanism. It's like the first thing when you're outside alone and someone passes by, you take out your phone, right?
Mhm.
Or when you're outside, you always talk to someone on the phone, you call someone, to have something to do. I think that's that's not social media now, it's like phone time. But I think that finding the balance, like I like that Reko is like trying to focus on the positive things we can get through social media. And I think that's it, to use it for good stuff, but not let it like how do I put it, so not let it
Replace
replace,
real-time communication.
yes,
Yes,
not
because
let it replace the other important aspects in life that do require a little more effort than clicking a like or posting a comment or communicating through text. Yeah.
or even promoting more lively means of the communication through social media. I mean, sending videos instead of just text, sending sound voice recordings over simple text messages. But yes, what you mentioned is really important, that real-time face-to-face communication is always the most important, and it helps also solve misunderstandings or sources of conflict produced through social media chats or other sorts of communication through social media that can be solved only through virtual communication. This can only be solved through face-to-face communication. This is something that also coaches have to take into consideration, that because it's something I think frequent that conflicts induced through social media communication by team members can be solved through real-time communication. Okay, nice.
Yes, but can you promote the face-to-face communication by using not necessarily social media, but using your phone?
Yes,
That's kind of the issue. What we're facing right now, right?
yes, this is the
So-
main point.
So I told you guys I'm gonna give you something in this podcast. So this is what we do right now. We created this like a little application that where the junior players and their parents and their coaches, they get like little tasks to do, but afterwards when they have like really done the task on their phone, they need to discuss about those tasks with the coaches and with the parents. So you see all those parents probably watching the game and the juniors playing, the coaches there. And afterwards, everyone is on their phone, right?
Mm-hmm.
But after the game, you get this little task. It might be something to do with your self-confidence or how did today's game went. You need to analyze it, how it went, and discuss about it with someone. And in this case, it's your coach and your parents if you're a junior athlete.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
So
the important others.
exactly. So what I was trying to say earlier is like we cannot really change the habits, what we're doing now, but can we use them to improve some other good things in life and in sports?
Mm-hmm. Yes, this is a really important question. I think we don't have all the answers yet as a scientific community, as a social community in general, but we, as with all the challenges that humanity has faced over the years, we try and find new answers and try to apply them in reality and see how they work. So what you recommended, Reko, I think is really useful for practical use from all people involved in sports, and not only in sports. I mean, also with children in school, you can use that, or even as parents inside your family. Okay, thank you very much, Nastasja and Reko, for the time, information, insightful thoughts you shared with us. I think this was a delightful conversation. We also thank you for hearing us. You can find further information about Nastasja and Reko in the description below this podcast video. You can also like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel and follow me to keep track with all the latest content uploaded regularly regarding sports psychology and other stuff. So
and share to all your social media platforms, right?
Yes, as much as possible. So goodbye to everybody.
Thank you, Vasilis, for inviting us.
Thank you
Thank
for
you,
your
Reko,
presence.
and thank you, everybody. Have a nice day.
Thank you.